In November 2023, the New York Times achieved the 10 million subscriber target it set in the Digital Publishers Innovation Report in 2014. How was the New York Times able to achieve this target? By staying true to its editorial values of covering national interest, product bundling, and several acquisitions. What lessons can publishers learn along the way? And is the New York Times on track to hit its 15 million target by 2027? As part of the special WordPress 7-part teardown series, Jeremy Fremont and Vahe Arabian explored the New York Times, one of the longest-running newspapers and a prolific digital media publisher. Over to you guys.
Hi, and welcome to the final episode of our Teardown podcast, Teardown WordPress site series. I'm Vahe, the founder of Sales Publishing, and I have with us our co-host Jeremy from Multidots. Hi, Jeremy. How are you?
Doing well. I'm excited to dive into this beast called the New York Times.
What's leading us to look at New York Times, Jeremy? I think from my perspective, obviously it's always been, particularly since the 2010s, considered the darling of the publishing space due to after when they published the 2014 Digital Publisher Innovation Report about sort of how they saw the culture of publishing trending and how they want to proceed with transforming the business. They've done that. They exceeded expectations, and now they're doing a lot more interesting things in the space to be actually able to be not impacted from the macro trends that we're seeing a lot. We've spoken about quite a few times. So before we go into the strategy and nitty gritty, which I think we all would want to go to, let's have a check on the website. So, Jamie, what did you see from your end as you scroll through the website?
Number one, right when you're on the website, right? Out of all the sites that we've done a teardown, it is the one that reminds me the most as if I'm holding a print actual newspaper, right? There's just so much to dive in. And when you grab the New York Times, right, if it lands on your front door, newspaper boy or girl throws it on your doorstep, you're going to hear it because it's thick. There's a lot to unfold directly there. So that's number one. Number two, when I was in the process of peeling back all of the different layers, you can go into so many different segments. If you care about games, you're right into the game section, cooking, the cooking section, sports, the athletic. So that was another thing that kind of caught my eye, that people can really segment down based on their interests, opposed to just the homepage itself. A lot of people probably have it bookmarked or saved or subscribed to certain sections, and that's why they subscribe to the New York Times, so they can have access to the things that they really care about, opposed to the whole enchilada.
Yeah, Nick, as you can see in the navigation, like for every single section, you have a newsletter and a podcast, So they're really trying to, as much as they're going broad, they're also trying to cater to those dedicated audiences as well.
Yeah. And if anybody is not subscribed to it, you instantly, specifically in different regions, I'm sure that they are testing this. But here, US, when I was in it, I'm not a New York Times subscriber as of now. You're instantly getting hit with the gated content, and it's very big, very prevalent. It's in your face. So they're leading with that as far as the subscription options, very, very, very strongly, more strongly than some of the other large publishers that we've seen and that we've dissected.
Exactly.
How about your end? Anything strike you as you were looking at it?
But I think, yeah, I mean, we know New York Times to be very strong in terms of the US. There is some, like me being visiting the website from Australia, it is showing the international versions and everything else. But it's interesting that they still haven't. Those attempts in the past to be able to go internationally, but I don't think that strongly has worked as well. But they're still trying to cater to it, which is positive. So we could talk about a bit of the strategy afterwards, but I think that's one key thing where I think there's a difference versus maybe when you're visiting in the US. And yeah, I think as well, we've spoken about in the past with the other websites how potentially doubling up on the navigation isn't a good thing here. But what we can see here though is more of a smarter use of using both the hamburger and the other website in terms of they're really trying to show their taxonomy both in terms of the hierarchical topics, with terms of the categories and subcategories, but then they're using this as the sort of juxtaposed topics that are related to lifestyle, for example, or the human aspect of it. So, sorry, I'm just trying to collapse the menu again. Doesn't seem that that's
So that's one issue, right? You can't collapse
yeah.
the hamburger menu very easily.
As a little bit difficult, yeah. There you go.
But I agree with you. I was pretty impressed thinking through how much content there really is to do the original solution architecting to be able to set it up so that when you hover over the primary navigation menu, that it's still divided in a fashion that it makes sense, right?
Yep.
And as you're going through US, right, the sections are underneath of the US drop down, it's sections, US politics, top stories, newsletters, and podcast. If you go over world, right, then the drop down navigation again is sections, top stories, newsletters. So it's slightly adjusted. Underneath of business, then the navigation menu is sections, top stories, newsletters, and podcast. And then if you get to arts and lifestyles and opinion, opinion is one that I think we could go over to because it's really about the columnists. So they want to find a particular opinion piece, and people are really drawn to this author, this journalist, their particular opinion. And so I think that's one that I haven't seen as far as an opinion drop down item with as much emphasis on the particular journalists that are helping produce that news. And that just shows, the depth of quality and trust and allegiance that some people develop for particular individuals who are writing these pieces or these articles. And so I found that pretty interesting.
That's been a big conversation point as well. You know how eventually many of these columns become independent media writers and create their own mini publications on Substack and such. It does come from the inspiration of being able to leverage their audience that they're built up on, whether they've built it up themselves or through these publications like New York Times.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely has shown its worth and value and fuel the creator economy that way as well. So I think that's been interesting. And I think as well, just to top off the menu as well, what's really important as well is that some of these topics as well that they're showing as top stories might not be, they're going to be trying to lean towards the trending stuff, which is fine. But they also, which also ties back to what A.G. Schulberger, the publisher, said, is that they're trying to be just providing quality around the topics that matter to the audience, which is primarily the US audience. So we can see here how stock market business, even though we're in business and I'm visiting, I could go to the US international section, but you see for the US, our top stories are relating to these three areas. And the top two stories in the world, there's probably a lot of other things going on in the world, right? But Israel, Hamas war, and the Russian-Ukraine war was the two top ones, because that's something that's been covered in the election year. So they're being very specific on what they're going to be highlighting as the most important top stories to matter for their audience.
Yeah, absolutely. So, if you're looking at a pulse of what's happening in the US or the world or business, arts, lifestyles, you can get a tap of that just by going to the New York Times and hovering over the navigation menu. You don't even have to go any deeper than that if you just want a 10,000 foot overview. So yeah, that's a great call out.
Perfect. Yeah. So I think you had noted something as well around the site search, Jeremy.
Yeah, let's go ahead and just try to do a little search. Search for any particular topic you can think of.
Trump election. Trump, sorry.
So now one of the things that they have is they're showing 144,872 results for Trump when it is searched. So the very first thing is you can look by date range with the drop down. So a lot of people are going to want the most recent news, right? When you're talking about a newspaper, I don't want to find something that is all the way back from the inception of 1851. I want to find something that was published yesterday, past week, this month. So that's the first drop down, which I like. It's going to be very topical to the date. And then the next one is going to be section. So under section, it again goes down to all those main sections: arts, books, briefings, opinions, sports. So it's very clear how you can divide it in. And then the last drop down menu itself that is going to be available is type. So maybe some people prefer to listen to audio, right? Maybe some people want to listen or read the articles. Maybe some people want to watch a video. So I like the 3 different ways that they have the filter options. And then they just have the standard sort relevance. But as you're scrolling down on the search page, this is something that I found very intriguing, is they have advertisements every so often. So let's say every 10 slots, they'll insert an ad. So they're generating revenue in an interesting fashion on their search page. A lot of people, because of the depth of the content here, are going to be doing searches, but they have a little section that says, have search feedback, let us know. And so when you see that, collecting feedback about your search page, because it's so often used if you're a large publisher, is invaluable. Because if you collect that data, you're going to find out what users like and what they don't like. It's a very simple thing to be able to do. Anybody can collect user feedback, but I just don't see enough people collecting that user feedback. So I think that small but strong call to action snippet can make a world of difference if you actually collect the data, analyze the data, and then take action based on the data that you collect.
Fundamental. That's very fundamental advice, and that's very well noted, Jeremy. You can see as well, though, like there's 2 things that I'm finding a bit interesting as well. Like the articles aren't sorted by that necessarily. It seems like they're being a bit more prioritized based on the categories rather than the date ranges or the type of content. Because, for example, the politics article in the 15th is the first result. Maybe, yeah, it seems like there's more of the emphasis on the weighting on the title as well, and then we've got more of the as we're scrolling down, I noticed that there's some articles in the like 18th here, so the sneaker content that they was writing about was that they're trying to sell it's being at the bottom of the page here. So
he's trying to sell some $399 gold sneakers. He needs some more money to build some golden Trump towers.
he's got a big bill to pay. It's $350 million.
Bills to pay.
Bills to pay. But yeah, I'm just curious what you think, why that might be the case. Like, are they maybe using the categories or section type to prioritize?
I would have a feeling, my gut assumption would be that they are using some sort of prioritization based on X amount of days. So let's say any articles that are 30 days or newer, and then based on the volume of actual traffic that those pages are getting. I could be completely wrong, but my guess would be they're trying to show things that have hit the most popular articles first, because I don't see any sort of categorization based on, hey, it's in this particular section, or I don't see that it's based on chronological most recency. I see that everything seems to be happening within the last X number of weeks. I don't see anything older than 2024 when we're doing this in February. So that's what I would assume. I'd assume that they have some sort of metrics and they're trying to surface things that are popular articles and show them at the very top. I mean, you got a lot to sift and sort through when you're showing 144,000 plus results for a particular search.
No, that's thank you for your insights on that. I want to ask you another point on your insights on this as well. So remember how we looked at Macworld and they started to incorporate an AI assistant search result, and it was literally answering the question for you, or just trying to find the relevant article based on your question that you had. We talked about the importance of quality feedback. Do you think that for a website like New York Times that they should start considering this, or is that something that might be going against the brand, or do you think that just maybe it's a big project to implement and it's taking a bit of time for them to do that? I guess maybe not to feed you the answer, like suggestions of how to answer, but like what do you think as to why they haven't incorporated smart?
I would say number one, I would imagine that they are doing something with AI in one facet, shape, or form of their business. They've got to be, right? It's so large, it's so vast, it's such a massive team. I think that in general, they have a large enough language model where if they'd want to create their own AI, they could. It depends if they want to invest in that LLM or not, and how powerful they want it to be. I would imagine that there's a lot of testing that needs to be done in order to be able to ensure the accuracy. One of the things that I know with the New York Times is they care about the quality of the content that they produce, and they might not have had enough confidence level with AI as of yet. They might be waiting for it to unfold just with, if you use AI, right? I think I've read some statistics that individual white collar workers, when they're using AI, they increase their productivity by about 37% as of now, but they decrease their accuracy by about 20%. So, do you want to increase the amount of content that you're producing, but yet are you willing to sacrifice the quality of content? And that might hold true here in the search results. So, I think it's a battle that you have to be weighed. If I'm thinking just in my value system of the New York Times, I don't want to decrease the quality because I'm known to produce high quality content, and that would hold true in my value system with search. That's my personal preference as far as how I'd answer that question.
Yeah, I mean, especially since like we saw the debt range, they got even the digitized content from 1851, so it definitely needs a big consideration and a proper consideration and implementation towards this if they're going to do this. So
talking about 1851, if you do me a quick favor and go to the very bottom of the page, go to the sitemap, because this is something I found wild, right? It really tickled my fancy when we're getting down to the bottom of the sitemap. So we click on it and we go to the years, and if we scroll all the way down to the bottom, we can go to the 1851 sitemap. The internet was not around in 1851, so they've taken so much time, energy, and effort that they've archived their print newspaper versions, so you can go back and see the articles, the homepage of what was produced all the way back in 1851. This just blew my mind. I thought it is just another testament to the quality and their dedication of producing content and sharing content with the world. Yeah, you can click and you can view like the actual page of the newspaper from 1851, which I just found fascinating.
No, that's awesome. You're in Texas. First articles in Texas about the Texas stock decision. It's kismet. So it's all coming together. But what I was going to say, we can see here as well as we interact. With the sitemap strategy that they're taking implementation. Please take a note, everyone, as well. That's like, particularly if you have in-depth content like that kind of segmentation really, really helps to help prioritize your internal linking, your site architecture, internal linking structure, to help the more new content to get picked up, and also to avoid all the content to get dropped off completely, because it's not going to become an orphan page when the site goes off. So if you do get to the point where you are, I mean, many publishers, if you get at least between 50 or 100,000, if you're around the range already, it's best to consider trying to implement some kind of solution like that, so that you can avoid having your articles become orphan pages, basically. So that's one quick tip there. So we see as well here on the screen that we've got the access to the login page. They're taking a similar approach in terms of they're giving a metered approach but you have to jump in and log in using your email. So they want to capture the email. I wonder why. Yeah, it looks like they're using a very clean solution as well. It looks like they're using is it Earth to the logins or something, or maybe they're using the custom login approach to do this. But yeah, they're doing that. So
and the call to action, it's something that's a soft call to action, right? It's create a free account. So they're not like, you must pay us, whip out your wallet right now, enter your email address. They don't even ask for your first name. So they are making it easy in order to be able to navigate in. But it also, right underneath in that subtext, it says gain access to limited free articles. They're also giving themselves the boundaries. Limited could mean you get access to 2 articles, or it could mean you get 20 a month, right? You have no idea what that parameter is. So they really want you to take that first action step, make it so it is an easy action step for most people to be able to take. A lot more people are holding on to their email and their privacy a lot closer to their chest in today's day and age. But yes, it is a strong item where it is constantly prevalent on the screen, but at least it is easy to access if you really want to read that article. A lot of people, if they've seen the title, they've read the first paragraph or two. If they're really drawn in, I would imagine that they're going to be entering in their email address so that they can read that one article that they were interested in initially.
Or even on a subconscious level as well. Like if we take a step back into the history of the New York Times, like a lot of times, as we were discussing before, like during the Second World War, many of these newspapers were a pastime activity in addition to catching up on the news. And I think the New York Times is really triggering to that as well. So hey, like, you know, you can just jump in, you can have a connection with someone else, play some games, maybe you can listen to a podcast. Don't feel as disconnected with the world. And that's the value exchange in return. We just want a simple email, and then they can just like many large publishers that have scale, give you like a small cost per acquisition amount to subscribe for a limited period of time, and then they'll eventually bundle and upsell you with more products, I guess.
Yeah, let's dive into what their subscription page looks like. That's always interesting to see.
Let's do that. Yeah, some massive discounts.
Yeah. Normally $6.25 a week. You're going to get it for 50 cents a week, billed as a $2 every 4 weeks for your first 6 months. So I'd imagine that they've A, B, C, D variable tested the heck out of these offers, right? Most publishers, if you're going to be finding what works well, you've done extensive testing. They also have that subscribe now button. It's black. I would have made it a different color. It'd be a simple thing to test. But on the right-hand side, if you're not watching the video, they actually go through all of their main sections, like, hey, audio, Wirecutter, The Athletic for sports, the New York Times, games, cooking. So all of these things, for me, that's a little bit jarring, but also it's so jarring that it makes you want to sit and watch it. So maybe that black, it doesn't contrast with some of these colors that are going on, but I would see that as an easy thing to be able to A/B test. I think any other color besides black, since it blends in with the page, could work better for that call to action button. But I also think that they've done a good job with saying cancel or pause anytime. It's right after that button. So then again, it's taking that more soft approach. So that's at the very top. If we scroll down, it shows, you know, other different subscription details that you can learn more about and what you're going to have access to. So you're going to have access, all access is what they call it. And I think that's their big subscription tagline, right? Get access to all of it. And as we talked about before, it's that whole enchilada, everything. And so they really want you to go with the all access is the primary thing that they always lead with, is what I noticed on the subscription pages.
Yeah, games, cooking, audio. I think you did it. You're on top. You're on the game with checking out the images and seeing what was missing. So we've got that all there, and then we've got also in print as well to find out offers and bundle from that perspective. So they keep it very simple, straightforward.
But that print offer, right? It's kind of tiny. It's at the very bottom of the page. It's not that prevalent. So even though one of the things I said at first is like the heaviness of the New York Times, like if you go into places, if they're carrying newspapers, oftentimes that newspaper, a physical print newspaper, is going to be a very local newspaper, or it's going to be like the New York Times, right? So it's still something that people do have delivery service for, but from their website, they're not really focused in on saying like, hey, let's get print subscribers.
They do have, yeah, I mean, sorry, they do have a link to today's paper, but you're right in saying that they're just primarily focusing on the bundled subscription because they know that people are looking for value. This is for them like a hit in terms of cost per acquisition for that user, and they're going to be able to, if they get them to buy once, they'll probably buy again.
Yeah,
considering that they're going to continue to add new things on their menu per se to do that. So yeah.
Could we dive into if you scroll to the very bottom, I think there is a spot there on the subscribe page where you can actually just click on subscribe offers, and they have like group subscriptions and home delivery and then gift subscription. So if you click on gift subscription right there, I thought that this gift subscription landing page was really nicely done. And I think the New York Times, as far as a gift, is a unique, thoughtful gift. And it's going to be something that I would imagine gets a decent amount of revenue because the fact that it's a gift that keeps on giving, right? You give it one time and it's straightforward. You buy it for a year. So it's like, oh, I know my friend loves New York Times games. I'm going to give them a subscription. Or I know my friend loves cooking, or my family member, right? My loved one. So I love this page. It's nice and simple to give a gift. And I really like the way that it's done across the board.
Yeah, other people, yeah, I'm curious as well. Like, there'll be other, maybe it's because they have a strong brand proposition, but other people to incentivize people to give a gift, they might give them a reward in return, but they literally just, I think it just reinforces the fact that bundling multiple products, if you have strong products and bundling them together, would outweigh so much than trying to incentivize people with one product by giving a referral offer. We see a lot of those referral programs not working, and I think this really validates that point. Like, we've seen the bigger publishers, even Wirecutter, like, they don't need those kind of referral programs to make that happen. So
yeah, and another thing that they're doing well is their digital strategy. They're stripping away other options. If you land on this page, you have one goal. Your one goal is you are going to buy a gift. You have no other distractions, no other navigation menu things at the top. Here's the landing page. Here's the one strong call to action. And I think it's something that it's 101 marketing, but I don't know if people get lazy or they simply forget. They often will create a landing page with call to actions, but they will continue to remain and keep all of their other navigation elements on that page. So then they'll just change the body copy opposed to it to be a real true destination and a landing page or splash page, whatever you want to call it, that has one goal for the user to do. And New York Times has remembered to do that. So, hats off to them. I'm glad that they're, using the strategies that are tried and true.
I think it might be also because, there used to be in the past a perception if someone didn't do that, having the menu and the template, that they might be trying to be a bit deceptive. But I think what really shows you here is that people have short attention spans. Like, if they're coming on this page, they're likely going to be ready to purchase or subscribe anyways. Like, you just have to really seal the deal and really focus on reinforcing the offer, making it very simple and straightforward, that all they have to do is just click and buy it. So yeah, I think hats off, like you said, Jeremy, to New York Times for just keeping things simple.
And then one last thing in the subscription, I don't know how we exactly get there, but if we go into games, and maybe it is going to be at the bottom of the page, NYT Games. So if we click on that as far as a subscription option, this was another interesting thing, that you can subscribe to everything, or you can get access only to games. So they always have two options. So it's like all of the times or games only. So then it's going to change the price. So all the times, it'd be $25 a month in this particular offer. Or if you just want access to games and that's the only thing that you care about, the cost of that offer goes down to $3 a month, right? So $25 a month or $3 a month, that's a drastic difference. So they are giving the user the ability to be able to make the choice to serve their needs to fit their budget as well. So I like that because they do have so many different offering types. You can do the same thing. Hey, 2 options for cooking, 2 options for games, 2 options for all of these subsets. So I really like that because some people might just love their games, right? So a little snippet and a story about their crossword puzzle. So back in the 1920s, everyone in the publishing industry thought crosswords, that's just a fad, not going to be much. But then there was a massive event that took place, right? Devastating event of Pearl Harbor. And so what one of the editors did in the 40s is she decided to introduce crosswords back into the New York Times as a way to distract from all of the chaos that was going on in the world. And then guess what? It stuck. They thought it was going to be temporary, but everybody loved it, right? They would go and seek out the Times for how amazing their crossword puzzle was. And now that strategy has continued to balloon, right? Now they have many different game offerings. I just had not very long ago in January of this year, somebody was showing me, hey, have you played this game from the Times? You've got to check it out. It's so fun. I play it every single day. So I think it helps them reach more of a younger audience as well with these games. So people become addicted to their games and their quality, just like their print quality, their crossword quality, or their other games that they offer are amazing. It might be one new one that they have every single day, but guess what? You're going to come back to that publication. That's going to boost your numbers. It's going to boost your audience, and you're going to get people who don't care about articles in your print, but they do care about your games. So I love how they've continued to capitalize on games all the way back from, one thing that took place in the 40s. And now the New York Times, when you think about it, their quality of their crossword puzzles, and some people just care about that.
And with that, let's I think I don't have additional thing to add on to that. So let's see the impact of that as well, because as we all know that and there's a vanity article in this that it wasn't because of Wordle that they suddenly, although it was a good timing and coincidence that they acquired Wordle, but they were actually looking into this as part of their strategy to go to the next level, from growing from 10 million subscribers to 15 million, because they achieved that target. And Wordle came along, it became popular, viral, and then they started to build on. And now they have a games department that constantly just creates new games, and now they have an advertising department that just focuses on finding new ways to continue to engage those audiences across the different verticals and so forth. So,
do you know when that Wordle acquisition took place?
It was in 2021.
2021. Okay, so quite recently.
Yeah, it's 2 years ago. So let me. They have the chart of the numbers here. Let's look at our favorite tools for our podcast listeners. We always look at Ahrefs and we look at SimilarWeb in terms of the traffic. So just waiting until Ahrefs loads a little bit, but it's too big. Okay, let me go to the overview page to show you the trends. So you can see around not 2021, 2022, beginning of 2022, but so they're getting on average 66 million organic users per month. It jumped up significantly since the acquisition.
400. It jumped up significantly for anybody who's not seeing this, from 66 million to, at the peak, 468 million. That's not just a 2x jump. That's not a 10x jump. That's a crazy wild jump. Like, you don't see those spikes every single day in business. And if you see that in your traffic numbers, oh my, it's a happy old day. And whoever made that decision to make that acquisition is probably getting a couple pats on their back and maybe a nice little bonus paycheck that's going to put their family in a great Christmas destination.
I'd say so as well. I don't think the pat on the back, it would be enough. Like you said, so hopefully they're getting a good bonus. But obviously we know that the trend died, but it's become more stable. They integrated Wirecutter as well in their business as well. Rather than being a separate site, they're integrated into the main website as well as a separate offering. So we can see the pure traffic impact that's had. And
but it's still stabilized at, what was that, like 220 million or so per month? So
yeah,
still
correct.
Pretty solid number. I mean, this is way higher than any of the other traffic numbers from any of the other sites that we've looked at. And again, it just shows you how much of a beast the New York Times is.
But look at the percentage of how much it's actually driving Wordle. 62%.
Oh my goodness, 61% of that. 140 million of that monthly traffic is coming directly from Wordle.
Let me segment quickly the total percentage of the games, because I'd imagine that that's going to be more than obviously 61 is just for Wordle, but I want to see quickly the other ones, how much this making an impact. So altogether 152, so 220 out of the 220, 152 million is coming from games.
Wow.
Actually that's not 100% correct, because there's a bit of mixed results with game reviews and stuff as well, but most of it is
so let's just say 150 million out of 220. So that's still around 68%. Massive amount.
Yeah, 100%. So it's definitely a key. I think it's going to be a great funnel for them to continue to get to that 15 million target for sure.
Wow. Do you know how much, by any chance, how much that Wordle acquisition was?
Oh, you got me. We'll add that into the notes, into the podcast notes, the exact number. I think like I don't want to. I think it was around 68 million, but I'll just double check. I'll double check again. I remember it was 68 million, but I'll just double check.
All right, 68 million. I mean, to drum that much in traffic, it's worth it. How much ever they paid, it was worth it.
Yeah, that's only organic search traffic, and then the total site traffic 636 million visits per month, and the traffic's only going up basically. And yeah, CNN's close behind.
Okay.
But we can see, sorry, on the screen for our podcast listeners, we're looking at some of the top competitors that similar what was brought up: Washington Post, Guardian, Reuters, and CNN. It seems like the CNN's only more closely behind because they've also factored in a big part of their content, from what I remember, is the international silos and so forth. But yeah, definitely games is driving the big part for New York Times, and we can see as well 75% of the traffic, 78% of the traffic is coming from the US.
And I mean, back to what you were talking about, and initially, Vahe, is that the New York Times has somewhat struggled in order to be able to capture that international audience versus CNN, where I would imagine that they have a larger global audience, that more of their traffic is segmented to other international markets and not heavily as weighted in the US. That's what I would assume. And I would also make the assumption, I could be incorrect, right? You should never assume things, but I'm going to do so on a podcast that will live on indefinitely. So who knows? You only live once, right? Let's make mistakes. But when you call yourself the New York Times, guess what? That's geo-specific centric to New York and the US in general. So it doesn't have as much of appeal if I'm living in Indonesia. I don't really care about reading the New York Times. The name itself, it's like judging a book by its cover. That name is not as appealing, and it already pigeonholes you in to a particular region. So I wonder how much of a item that has been as far as an uphill battle for being able to reach other global parts of the world.
There has been a battle, and just talking a little bit back to my initial point that I was talking alluding to about what the publishers said about their strategy. I mean, to give some context, like I remember in 2013-14, they tried to set up a bureau in Australia, build out their team. They said they made a big announcement that they're going to be finally launching and covering more stories in the Asia Pacific region. Then all of a sudden, no noise, like we barely hear and see anything in terms of local presence in Australia around that. And so when the reporter from the Reuters interview article that I read that was published at the time of this recording a few days ago, which was I think on the 19th, they said, what's led to the success of the New York Times? And they're like, we realized that for us, it's really important to do very well journalism on a national level. The fact that they'll able
US
to keep
national level.
US national level, as opposed to going local, whether it's local in terms of different states, or I think it can even be put into the context of different countries, because for them, that's what they recognize is that audience wants, and that's what really helps them to drive more traffic and revenue. Where I think, like you said, right, there has the pre-definition name of New York Times, the name in itself, and we know that's very US centric as well. We actually see as well many other international brands actually going into the US as well. So, like for example, the Guardian or many of the UK publishers, they realize that a lot of them are actually also reading about news that's happening in the US, and so rather than going out where a lot of people aren't seeing much incremental growth, stay where you are, double down, grow your traffic like the New York Times done, and just focus on bundling. And I think they're just continuing to build a moat around them instead of trying to stretch themselves and trying to, like, they're going to have naturally different reporters in different locations, like one-off reporters, but they're not going to set up like in the old days where you set up a bureau, costs a lot of money, you have to then pay a team of people to live in these countries and stuff. They just maybe have a reporter or so that can cover various trending news that can fuel the main international site.
And I mean, going to your point, thinking about 78% of the market of their traffic is from the US. And we're talking about 220 million
Six-
people coming to their site
600.
every single month. The US is not that big. I mean, the US has, I don't know, 340 million people living in it, 350 million people. So that's pretty amazing. Like their amount of reach and covering like those national news articles, it's obviously working because people care about it. Just how broad and expansive their reach really is, with 78% of that traffic coming from the US. So it's pretty wild just to think about, those numbers. And yeah, really, really, really interesting. So thanks for sharing some of these numbers on SimilarWeb and Ahrefs.
I'll quickly show you as well the numbers in terms of revenue because they posted it as well. Reuters have posted it, so you can see as well that strategy is working on this front, and it also helped them actually sustain their print subscription revenue as well. Just quickly show you guys. So 2013, you can see the numbers here in terms of the breakdown. It didn't drop off too much, the print subscriptions, to be honest. Like the print advertising has dropped off, but that's expected.
So
But then you
going
can
from 675, is that
mi-
600
million.
million dollars in 2013 to 556 million in 2023. So yeah, that's an insignificant drop.
Yeah, it's not too much of a drop. We've seen a big drop in terms of the print advertising from 506 to 187, but we see
Wow.
here from 149 million in terms of digital subscriptions to a billion.
Wow.
And then last year, and then they double jumped up in digital advertising. That's even a small amount as well for them. So just I think we could quantify. We could see sorry, we can see in terms of numbers what the impact has made 10 years later.
Yeah.
So,
and you can just see, I mean, this chart that you're showing, it just shows the increase of digital, right? Where digital was just a small like sliver of the whole piece of the pie, and then now it's the majority of those digital subscriptions for millions of dollars that are coming in. Wow.
yeah. And I think as well, like, sorry, I know I keep coming back to this point, but it's really showing that print's not dying off. That we can, if you have like a good bundling strategy, that print can sustain itself and it can be positioned as a premium.
Very true. Yeah.
So I really like that point. Jeremy, let's jump back a little bit in terms of their strategy. So I want to look a little bit more into the article level as well, because they are sort of going through and making some changes, both in terms of, I read some other updates that they're looking towards doing, not the interview from AG, but other news that's happening. So we're seeing, yeah, they got see the full article. Sorry, we're being blocked by.
But hey, you're gonna have to put in your email. They're tempting you.
I'll do it for the team. I'll do it for the team. You can see here, guys, as we've logged into the logged on and given the free email, that they have a good onboarding process as well. They remind you of their offer in case you want to subscribe, and then they let you go through to the ad itself, or to the article itself. So yeah, so everyone, we're logged into the website now that we've used up the meter, and I guess what I want to share was they're really they're going to take some steps now to really update their author profiles. So basically what they're doing is, if you go to their byline pages of any of these authors, so let's for example go to Julian Barnes' page, they're going to be working towards having an about, contact, featured, and latest section. They're trying to essentially explain more of the context around, in first person, what they cover, their background, and a bit more of the details that would allow them to be verified. There are a few different arguments around this that they're doing this around. First of all, some part of misinformation to help verify that, and to talk about exactly and get to introduce the person behind behind the story on that as well, which was still very critical back in the day. And there could be some importance in terms of flagging expertise. Obviously, AAT is not a ranking factor, but they're trying to do their best that they can to just really just provide more credibility to avoid misinformation on many of the articles. And so there's been a lot of experimentation with many authors and with many publications around how they use bylines and author pages. On SCDP, for example, we do have like reviewed by when we have an article that like the editing process, we have that on our website, like co-authors and who's reviewed and edited the article. That's just providing that transparency, which I think from an audience point of view, that provides that trust. So ultimately, what I do see moving forward, which ties back into the strategy that we were speaking about, that they're doing in terms of the opinion section, having the top columnists here. I think that maybe they want to actually, if any of these people leave, right, it's going to be hard to replace these people. And why not go and make that an organization-wide effort and empower everyone to really be able to show their background, because everyone has a way of sharing their story and being able to report in terms of New York Times standards. So I think they're really trying to de-risk a little bit of the over leverage of a few people that's doing not the majority of the coverage of the news and stuff.
And that's an amazing item that they've done, that initiative. When you have really detailed pages for each person who's contributed to an article, it automatically, in today's day and age where AI, you scratch your head and you wonder, oh, was this created by AI? Now this is another trust indicator. So your trust battery continues to get more filled up when you have your face and your name stamped to an article, right? So you can read who was involved in writing this article. And oftentimes it's not even just one person. It might be a collection. It might be 2, 3, 4 different reporters or journalists. So then it also shows you, wow, look how much time, energy, and effort probably went into this article. All of these 3 or 4 individuals spent their time, energy, and effort in order to be able to produce this one article for me. If I'm thinking about that, it also increases my perception about the value that I'm getting. So then now when I'm going to subscribe, that cost of $25, let's say a month, or $6 a month, whatever the cost might be, it seems like it's a great value, right? Because I'm getting so many people's time, energy, and effort into one article. So I love what you just called out there with the bylines. That's great.
Yeah, no, thanks for that. And I think that we'll continue to see many different iterations and perspectives from many publishers, but I think they are taking the next step in terms of there was a small sample study that, not to digress too much, but there was a small study that I read from another SEO that was checking a sample of 50 sites, and one of the things that they were looking at is what are the main changes that a lot of publishing sites done for the past year, and a lot of them were like writing in first person. And so I think that the New York Times is just considering that and allowing bigger publishers to take more of that risk to see the impact of that, so that many medium to small publishers can try that themselves. And so I encourage many of our listeners as well that are maybe small and mini publishers, or even just a local publisher that is on there, that don't be afraid to just have multiple people byline the article and just primarily focus on sharing your perspective. And it's going to be, for the long term, it would pay out, especially if there's more filters around perspectives showing up for the search results. So yeah, that's essentially, I wanted to share that as well. So I think that's going to be a continued part of their strategy. And that can also help. Sorry, one more thing, part of this as well is it's also help people engage and comment as well. You can see that there's a big commenting feature where I don't think we've seen that. I actually had a discussion with one of our clients yesterday as well. Like we see many people not commenting, and typically the spammers and so forth. Now, if you know who's actually writing the article and the people that are writing the article, and you know that they're going to jump into the comment threads, then that's going to also and help you answer some of those questions. And there you go. That's going to be very valuable as well. because you need to sign in to read the article, then you can engage with that person behind the paywall. So yeah.
And at the beginning and the end, right? They have the bylines. So they have
Correct.
a little snippet of images and the people who contributed to the article. And at the end of the article, boom, it's talking a little bit more about the individuals, which is great with a little bit extra spit.
Exactly. No, thanks for adding on that point. I think the final thing that in terms of their strategy moving forward, that they're going to be, which everyone's looking into, and which is still a hot topic that I've been reading up on as well. I think Editor and Publisher originally published this, but there's a few other sites now that have done a spin of that story, but with their own take of it as well. That New York Times is also going to be launching their own AI. Like they've already building out the AI department, AI team. So editorial team, sorry. So what that sort of means is we've seen many publishers in the past year talk about what tools should I take? Is like content generation, like applying certain things as they're doing the job. I try to understand the limitations around that and understand whether or not they can or can't do things without being negatively impacted. And I think in terms of the article that I read, which we'll put into the comments, what's really smart about how New York Times is approaching it, and the New York Times is approaching it, which I realized as well when I was speaking to. Sorry, as a short shout out, we're doing the WordPress Week event next week as the time of this recording. So please join us if you do hear this. But Liam Andrew, the CPO from Texas Champion, was also talking about how they say that they want to consider how they use generative AI as a co-pilot, as a product that can help assist doing things better, not so much leaving it open for a tool for everyone to access. Because imagine, for example, you give entire team access to ChatGPT, and now there's a workflow in terms of getting the article created to going live, and as you're going and creating the article live, your engineering team or your product team have hands on that content, and then they might, for SEO purposes, add the alt tag, the image title, and then you might see the output of that and see something random, and you'd be like to yourself, well, what's going on there? So what I think that I think the reason why New York Times is creating that separate department that's going to help enable other journalists and publishers is to be able to co-pilot alongside AI so that they can become more, they can spend time doing more creative and doing more deeper journalism, and providing the service as well. Having that data repository, for example, like for election coverage, and being able to sell that as a service, and doing other things as well. I think that's going to give a big potential for these publishers. So I think many publishers should flip the switch of trying to look at quick wins to incorporate AI, and then think about how can I co-pilot an offering, a product, or a process with that, so that I can do things more efficiently.
Yeah, it's always good to be thinking about experimentations that you can implement in your business, right? Technology is continuously evolving, and oftentimes if you're not adopting the technology, your competition is, and at one point in time you might get left behind.
Exactly. So I think with that, Jeremy, any final takeaways or comments?
I'll just say the final takeaway. Thanks so much for you being able to subscribe with your email, and we'll still see, as you're a free subscriber, their big thing is enjoy unlimited access to all of the times. So they're still going for getting those dollars and those cents. You're just a free subscriber, Vahe, but they need your hard-earned Australian dollars in order to be able to funnel their $1 billion plus of subscription revenue that they're getting. So they're still going strong directly with that. They're still going to remind you, even if you have access to that free article, to be a paying subscriber. So yeah, with that, great job overall, New York Times. There's a lot to take in. I think we could do 10 more episodes just going into different segments of the New York Times, but I think this is a good place to wrap.
And Jeremy and Multidots, thank you so much for sponsoring this series, and it was great working with you guys on this, and also being able to go through each of these publishing sites. And we hope, Jeremy and I together, we hope that you guys value this as well, and let us know. as we share this across our socials and in newsletters. If you'd like us to do this again, let us know. We're happy to consider doing another series. But until then, see you later.
Bye, everybody.
Special thanks to our sponsors and co-hosts Multidots for contributing to the 7-part WordPress Teardown series. Be sure to subscribe to future episodes at stateofdigitalpublishing.com and join us for a deep dive into our upcoming WordPress Publisher Success Week starting on February 26 by visiting stateofdigitalpublishing.com/WP-week. Until next time.